Welcome to my podcast as people talk to. I'd like to welcome you all again to part two of mental health, alleviating stigmas of mental health. The purpose of podcast two is to be a community forum platform via podcast, and our mission is to inform, connect, and to serve our local community. The vision is to impact change in the lives and motivate unity in our communities. The theme that we have right now is alleviating stigmas to mental health. I'd like to welcome our guest today, Mr. Bryce Mathews. And Bryce will tell you a little bit about himself before we get started.
Sure. So currently I work with NAMI Greater Cleveland. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But my position at NAMI, is I'm a peer and education support coordinator. So pretty much I'm a peer. Okay. So
we're dealing with the issues.
Yeah.
We're all dealing with our own issues.
We are dealing with our own stuff, for sure.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I got an opportunity to share with the public that there's a distinction between mental health conditions and developmental disabilities. Mental health, it can occur at any age and primarily affect emotional and psychological well-beings of individuals. Where developmental disabilities, they appear early in life and they affect the cognitive, physical, and behavioral development of an individual. A person can have both conditions. Mental illness does not directly impact cognitive abilities like some developmental disabilities do, but they can change a person's perspective and thought. Today, I wanted to just have a conversation with you, Bryce. Can you please tell me how, as a peer supporter and or educational person, benefit a person in the community or one of your clients? What do you do?
Okay. So, part of it kind of runs into stigma. So part of what it is that my purpose is to destigmatize mental health.
Awesome.
Because we all have mental health, period. We all have mental health challenges or crises. But the challenge is when we don't address that mental health crises in a way that's effective, it turns to mental illnesses. And then sometimes it becomes a chronic illness, So where I help is I'm one, as a peer, my life experience. Let me back up a little bit. So NAMI. All right. So NAMI is the largest grassroots organization in the country.
Yes.
All right. The reason they're the largest grassroots organization.
Hold on 1 second. Can you please tell them what NAMI means?
Oh, National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Thank you.
Right. So the National Alliance on Mental Illness is the largest grassroots organization in the country. The reason it's grassroots is because we all have lived experience with trauma, with, mental health crises. And how we navigate those mental health crises determines, our outcomes over an extended period of time. So, one thing I always say is there's going to never be any invented emotions.
Right, that is
right.
True.
Never going to be invent any new emotions, and emotions come about because of our experience, things that we've experienced and things of that nature. But the challenge exists when we don't talk about our experience or what it is that we're dealing with. Because yes,
when you say that we don't talk about, are you talking about the person that has the illness? Or those of us that work with people that have these, we're not talking.
So again, I'm coming from a peer perspective.
Okay, thank you.
I'm coming from my own experience where, so first of all, nobody wants to be judged, and that's part of the stigma, because of the perception of, mental health challenges. And oftentimes people, they don't accept even if they heard the diagnosis that they had, either they want to get a second opinion or they just like, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. I feel good or, whatever, because they don't want to be labeled as someone who is ill-equipped or or not efficient or, lacking in some way, shape or form. But mental health is just like it's physical health. Actually, they affect each other. Physical health affects your mental health. Your mental health affects, your physical health and so forth.
That makes sense because sometimes when you are stressed out, you can get a headache, you can get a stomach ache.
You can break out into hives.
You can get hives, yes. And those are signs that are nonverbal.
Right. Right. Those are symptoms of this mental health challenge. And again, back to the stigma, because we don't talk about our challenges that we deal with, we, kind of shoulder the brunt of what's happening and we got everything all together when in all actuality, we may be dealing with anxiety.
Yes.
We may be dealing with depression. In fact, people who have completed suicide or died by suicide, oftentimes it comes as a surprise because that person is joyful, happy, great to be around. Think of some of the famous people who've died by suicide. You think like, wow, like that's a surprise.
Why is suicide seeming to become more prevalent in the Black neighborhood with our children or people coming home from the service? Why is that? What do they say as a peer person? I know you hear
so
the complaints.
So what was the question again? Because
So in our communities, we have a lot of suicide from our children. We have a lot of suicide, or we're hearing about suicides from people that will come home from the service. And it's just more than it ever used to be.
So part of that's a deep question.
Do you ever talk to somebody that says, I think about ending my life?
So December of 2021, my son died by suicide at the age of 19. And during that time, that part that's even why I'm even in the mental health space, because I couldn't hear his cries for help because they showed up as dysfunction.
Okay.
And because I haven't necessarily dealt with my own challenges, I didn't know how to really help him. So, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, my interactions and how I'm showing up with my family, with my friends at work, and being more attentive. But one of the things that I think that's real high in our community is not being prepared, not feeling prepared, and knowing that there's a heavy weight. So that age group and all of us who are on the call know who's ever graduated high school, they know how difficult that time is
very difficult time.
After high school for like the next 4 or 5 years. And how you deal with that time as a young adult, making all of your decisions on your own, and being responsible for your own things, that's a heavy weight. And a lot of our youth today aren't as equipped. Like you would say your mom's rearing and mom and dad's rearing was drastically different from yours. And they were different people.
Yes. Different time. Different eras.
Same thing with our children. It's becoming more and more where they aren't necessarily prepared for what's to come.
Do you think we live in a violent culture now?
I think so. I think people are disconnected from themselves.
Okay.
Because if I love me, I don't want to hurt you.
Okay. Good point.
So I think we're disconnected from ourselves, and part of oftentimes in life, we don't feel prepared for the next step, but through what we believe about ourselves, and different things, that have been used to build our own resiliency, we get by it.
So as a educator, what do you do when you talk to an individual one-to-one? What do you do?
So, first thing, you have to accept the person where they are, because there's no one wants to be judged. And if you really want someone to open up, you have to use non-judgmental language.
Okay.
And really be empathetic as to what their needs are, because oftentimes they can't communicate what they're feeling.
Well, it sounds like you have to care.
You have to have empathy. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to, there's different listening that happens.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we want to solve the problem or give them a solution or kind of coax them in a different way.
Yes.
Like, come on, man, you know you better than that.
Yes,
It's like, but no, I'm seriously thinking about taking my life. Like, like, no, I'm serious. I know you say I'm better than that, but I don't feel better than that right now.
Yeah.
So we have to learn how to be less judgmental in our conversations and try to be empathetic and sit in that person's chair. Like, I can't understand how you feel. Like, so what I would say is I would say, man, that must be really difficult what you're dealing with. Like, you know, if I've had experience with it, I could say, yeah, I know personally from my experience, I don't know how you're feeling, but man, it's been difficult for me. So I know it's crazy difficult for you right now.
Well,
how could I help you?
If they're not on their medication and you go to them, the ones that are on medication and they're not been taking their meds, how do you get that person? I'm just saying, because a mental illness is mind sickness, right?
So oftentimes, no, I'm sorry.
No. I'm just thinking how when they're off their medicine, it takes them to a different place in their mind. And sometimes they're not as cooperative.
So first, and how I would address someone, it would just be consistent, trying to be empathetic. Like, I would have to come to find out that this person is not taking their meds. I would have to ask a few questions. I would have to know, I have to be educated on how to support someone going through crisis or traumatic or mental health crisis, which is, and shameless plug, NAMI is all about. So their tenets is education, support, advocacy, and referral.
Okay.
So all of their programs and services are free. There isn't any cost to anyone. But from a sense of education, we feel that people with the right information, people make the right decisions. And giving them that awareness, like if I'm just a peer, but I'm talking to someone, and they're having a conversation, and let's say they aren't on their meds and they're giving me adverse reaction, we might get into a fight. I might just split my ways and not talk to that person no more, or sever the relationship in some way, shape, or form. But if I'm educated on mental health, and that's everybody's mental health, because we all have it.
Yes.
So if I'm just educated on mental health, how it works, what are some of the symptoms or the diagnoses or treatments, or
how we can tell if we're well as opposed
how
to
we can tell
if I'm doing well as opposed to when I'm not doing so well.
So can I give an example?
Yes, please.
All right. So I have ADHD. I have PTSD. I've suffered from depression. I've had suicidal ideation. I've, again, ADHD. But my ADHD is undiagnosed. And it wasn't until I was educated on what ADHD is that I realized, man, I got all the symptoms.
So give me, to our audience, what you found as a symptom for your ADHD. Just a couple.
So reading books. I never finish a book.
Okay.
I get to the last 2-3 chapters and I'm jettisoned.
Okay.
Because I figured I done read most of the book. Now I'm getting bored with the book. I didn't know what that was. I thought I was wondering, like, man, why can't I just finish a book? Like, my wife go through books, plural. Like, by the end of this year, we'll have a library that we could just give to somebody. So, but I can't finish one. I'll get the meat and then I'm done. Or in certain projects, if I lose interest, it's nothing for me to distance myself from it, but I may still be needed.
Okay.
To fulfill whatever obligation. Let's say, for example, I was on a board once before, and it was a year commitment, and I'm in maybe month 9. My situation changed, and so does my commitment to the board.
Oh, wow.
They like, I understand you got stuff going on. Can you just finish the rest of this time out? And this was years ago. This was before I even knew what it was that I have. Like, and so now that I know what the symptoms are and I can see it in how I respond, I can see it in tasks that I have. I can see, and I know how to hedge against it now.
And some people would consider that procrastination. We label same things to fit our need.
Procrastination is a part of that's an ADHD response.
But what I'm saying is our norm might not be abnormal.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So when we're dealing with mental health issues, as we are, that they are sometimes hard to find within ourselves. But when we are the educator or the clinician, we need to be able to pick up what's going on with someone else.
Yes.
One of the areas that I wanted to mention here is treatment. What type of treatments are available that you've noticed, even for yourself? What kind of treatment? Is everything a pill?
So no.
All right.
There's a stigma against medication. I had a stigma against medications. But sometimes the illness is so far gone. So first of all, in treatments, sometimes the treatment could cure the symptoms. Other times they would have to just learn to manage and live with the symptoms. And it may involve medication. And then, but medication is there to help take the edge off so that you can do the mental work. A lot of people think with medications, when it comes to mental health, that they're doomed for life to medication.
Yeah.
Sometimes that may be the case. But to the extent of you doing the mental work, the acceptance, there's grief that comes with that.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah. There's grief that comes with finding out new things. Like, man, like I had to. So there was a project that I'm working on with my wife, and she runs a nonprofit in honor of our son. But there was a project we were working on, and I noticed my ADHD stepped in. And whereas the project went well, the project went better. It was our first year doing it. It was a success. I failed my team. And I had to go and apologize to my wife because I noticed it. But in noticing these things, and the way learning works. Okay. The way learning works is you first are aware of it after it happened. And then after it happens, the time lessens up until the real time. And then you could be in real time and realize I'm in this situation. And then the more you grow, you start to get ahead of it and see it when it starts to come up. So that's where I am in my growth, where I recognize it afterwards, and I'm seeing it pop up all the time. So,
got one more question.
Yes.
What would you recommend a person whose family member is causing a strain for the whole household? And you see that a behavior, I don't care if it's that they don't come out their room, or their behavior, it's a behavioral problem. They slamming doors, or how should a family member treat, or a friend treat, that person who is not acting in their normal?
You know, you would think this was scripted, because that was the perfect alley-oop for me to talk about the family support at NAMI.
Okay.
Because most of the times people dealing with the mental illness don't really recognize the fact that they're struggling. And oftentimes the family are the ones that are left with holding the bag and the weight and the grief and all this other stuff. So educating the family,
shame.
even the shame. Oh yeah, the stigma behind it and everything.
Yeah.
But to get training and understanding, and like I said, NAMI does free training, free educational support for families who are dealing with or trying to love someone or their loved one who has a mental challenge. So yeah, I would suggest they reach out to NAMI Greater Cleveland.
And you also can go to emergency. You could take, especially if it's your child or someone that could hurt themselves. That's in crisis. You could
call 988.
988.
988 is a great. So most people don't know the difference between 911, 988, and a helpline.
Okay.
911 is emergency. If somebody bleeding, dying, you need somebody there right now, get them.
Okay.
988 is more crises and crisis intervention. Like you have a friend that's having a mental health challenge, and it's like, okay, so let's call 988. They'll walk you through it. I mean, you don't even have to let them know you're calling 988.
Okay.
Or let's say you're having a crisis somewhere, and you need to know how to help someone. You just dial 988. Or if you yourself have a challenge, dial 988.
I got one more thing to ask.
Yes.
Can you please share with us a success story that you've had in your career?
So I can, again, I want to my personal life. So a success. So, you know, after the death of our son and the education we got, like we have other children, we have other sons who are navigating this space of this challenging time. And the success for me is seeing how I navigate the space different and how I'm able to help my sons.
Because they do have feelings because it was their brother.
It was their brother.
And they probably didn't recognize certain things, so they have a level of guilt as well.
And then to help them understand navigating that space when they don't accept where they are, to me, that's success. I mean, even though they're still dealing with their situations and stuff like that, the fact that I'm responding differently and can get a different result, that's success.
I want to ask you one more question. In regards to dealing with males, men have a tendency to, they have a tendency to tell you have a problem, but they don't have a tendency to recognize the problems within themselves.
Correct.
I shouldn't say just men, but some people.
Right.
But it's just hard. Does pride play a big part in their demise?
Huge role. So even the foundation of the country, like this country has been led off of our military.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so our military personnel, they're trained to avoid their mental health. In fact, you know, they don't care about how you feel, just get the mission done. And in that training, not only is it brainwashed into you, but if I say I'm having a mental health challenge, let's say I'm having a challenge at home and I don't know how to deal with it and I need to talk to somebody. In the military, they will make you undeployable or non-deployable. They will put you on light duty. And because it's not something that people can physically see, they can say you're lying and they can write you up. And this will be in your record. They make you non-deployable. That's in your record. That's all. They're going to see that as long as you're in the military. So you have this scarlet letter. So people, and I'm going to say men because I can speak for that, and having been in that culture, it's the pride of I can handle this. But when what got me to this point was when my son died, I couldn't handle that.
That's reality.
Yeah, I couldn't handle it. And I knew I needed to find other support. So I needed to find something because nothing made sense. Nothing made sense for 2 months. Like, first clear thought I had was, man, I got to go to work. And this was 2 months later. So, yeah. It plays a big role.
One thing that I've gathered from both conversations that I've had about mental health so far is that you really have to take care of yourself. In order to take care of other people, your mental self has to be available, because not just advocacy, but taking care of yourself gives you the power and the strength to go and deal with other people's issues. Mental health, you got dementia, you got people that's dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction. You have family members that are dealing with behavioral issues from children and spouses or loved ones. And then we have the neighbors, we see the homelessness. All these things make us know that we need to take care of ourselves, because there go I, but by the grace of God. We do not know what tomorrow brings, but we do know we need to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. You can't give something you don't have, like love. Like, you can't give love if you don't have it inside first.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need to find more ways to focus that love on ourselves. The intention behind why you do something informs your outcomes. Right.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of things that we do on a daily basis to tell ourselves we love ourselves, but we don't recognize it or give it that power. Like, you didn't grab the clothes you brought out of the dirty clothes hamper this morning. You did your hair, brush your teeth, you eat food that you enjoy. Like, the simplest things. You make your bed up in the morning, or some people do, but the simplest things that you do to show yourself, man, I love me. That goes a long way in how the world responds to us.
Yes. Well, People Talk To podcast is about to come to an end, but I want to thank my guests.
Thank you, cuz. Oh, you didn't tell them about your cousin. You ain't tell them that.
But I just want to thank you, cuz, for sharing with me your experiences in this mental health field.
Thank you.
To our audience, I would like to invite you all to call us if you have any questions or concerns, or even topics that you'd like to talk about concerning this mental health issues. Right now in our community, we see so much need, and we want to be available to you. There are also, he mentioned NAMI, you have SAMHSA, we have local community agencies, Care Alliance. We also have,
Adams
boards. And you also have your neighbors. You talk to people. If anything I got out of this lesson today is to please, if there's a problem going on, you got 988-911-211. Give a call. The life you save may be your own.
No doubt.
Okay? So from this, we just want to thank you all for tuning in. Please come back again and see our People Talk To program. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.